So this Renmin University economics professor, he was not one of my professors when I was there. Those guys have all long since been caught up in the anti-corruption campaign. He made a very ballsy speech here, and the entire speech is posted on YouTube. It kind of reminds me of the last week. There was an article where the head of the Construction Bank of China talked about how there's no need to, you're stupid if you buy houses in China from now on. And it's a similar thing here. It's just like, how did he think that this was going to be okay, saying this and recording it? Like, doesn't he? I feel like maybe some people in China, they went about their lives and they honestly didn't fully realize the extent of the censorship and the extent to which if you go out, if you say something in an outspoken manner that's against the regime, how much that's going to harm your career, if not land you in some sort of a jail. So they didn't realize this because they weren't focused on anything political. And now that there's like an economic thing that that they have to talk about, they're just sort of saying their opinion without realizing how much problems that's going to cause them. That's what it seems like. And honestly, it's really interesting for me to be watching this because I've been like the boy who cried wolf regarding China's economy for like 10 years straight. I keep on telling everybody, it's a bubble, don't buy houses, don't buy property. There's no reason to like invest any further in this economy right now. I was saying that, and I kept on waiting to see, this local government went bust, this project went bust, this ghost town, and now it's like actually happening. And it's weird to just get confirmation from like the same sort of people, like a Renmin University economics professor, same sort of people that previously would have been totally disagreeing with me. Which brings me to this article from the South China Morning Post last week, talking about how China is ignoring the role that the U.S. played in its rise to economic glory. China is, of course, a huge country. It has a lot of economic potential. It has the brain power. It has everything that you could possibly need to be an economic superpower. However, this last 30-year, 40-year period of economic growth was entirely based on it plugging into the U.S.-based system. So now if the U.S. itself decides to pull out of the system, or if the U.S. decides to try to exclude China from that system, then that means that potentially the entirety of this 30, 40 years of growth could be undermined. A lot of it also is just reform of, establishing the rule of law, establishing stability instead of the chaos of the Cultural Revolution. But rule of law is retreating, and chaos might not be that far away either. Not to mention, it's just a lot more difficult to engage in international trade if you have to worry about the U.S. Navy causing you problems. It's more difficult to engage in any sort of international trade if you're worried about sanctions from the U.S. And if you're censoring your media, but the U.S. is engaged in it, what if the NSA is trying to take down the Great Firewall? What if the censored media is replaced by controlled media that is attempting to create a color revolution in China? Even if these things don't succeed, they could definitely undo a lot of the growth, undo a lot of the positive things that have happened in China over the past 30 years. So on the part of the U.S., it was really stupid of us to prop up this country when we weren't sure that they had our best interests in mind. In fact, we were almost sure that they had the opposite of our best interests in mind. And it was really only a matter of time before we had a leader that realized that. And when that happened, it was going to be bad for China. This was kind of all inevitable. Despite China's economic downturn, as Brad Setzer here points out, we still have not seen the thing that's going to really set China-U.S. relations into a violent trajectory is the depreciation of the yuan. Interestingly, Balding seems to believe that capital controls have been effective, and that would explain why we haven't seen any depreciation so far. So here's that profile of Robert Lighthizer. This is a great article, highly recommended to anybody that's interested in the U.S.-China trade conflict. After Clinton's re-election victory, Lighthizer took to the Times op-ed page to warn of disaster. If China is allowed to join the WTO on the lenient terms that it has been long demanding, virtually no manufacturing job in this country will be safe, he said. China's leaders view economics the same way they view defense, foreign policy, or human rights. It is a means of expanding the power of the state and maintaining control of its population. Here's something interesting I had no idea was going on. Apparently Lighthizer has vetoed all appointments to the WTO, and the appellate body no longer has enough members to hear all possible cases. So basically they've intentionally rendered the WTO ineffective as an organization. The article quotes him as saying that he wants to make WTO decisions non-binding. So as Trump puts new tariffs on China, when China challenges those tariffs in the WTO, the case goes nowhere. As the trade war heats up, companies are scrambling to shift production out of China. Production of labor-intensive goods is going to Vietnam, and production of capital-intensive goods is going to Thailand. And India got more FDI than China in 2018. But you would already know that if you had been following me on Tumblr in 2013.